We call it naive, primitive, antique, tribal, and more recently classical art. But what is actually African traditional art? How to recognize it, and what are its rules? Welcome to African Art Whispers, and in today's video we are going to look at the characteristic of African traditional art so that next time when you see it you should be able to spot it. So let's just get started. Welcome to the first video of African Art Whispers. Today we are going to analyze the four main characteristics of African traditional art, followed by a few facts. Generally, we can say that African traditional art tends to be figurative, and it is made out of different materials, which includes clay, wood, ivory, cloth, and so on. Those mediums are very fragile, and because of that, it can be challenging to conserve. It is also said to be functional, which means that it is made with a practical use in mind, and this involves, for most of the time, ritual ceremonies. Let's just dive into the four main characteristics, starting with the first one. The first characteristic is that it's human-centered, which means that the human body is the main source of inspiration, even if it's to represent a divinity or the supernatural. Because of that, it's very common to find that objects are decorated with a part of the human body. This is, for instance, the case of those Afrocombs, where you can clearly see that the top is a human head or a human hand. Animals are also a source of inspiration, but most of the time they are a metaphor to the human character. You have leopard and elephant that are synonym to leadership and rulership because of their deadly strength and power. Let's just apply this principle. We have this elephant mask from the Bamileke Kingdom in Cameroon, Central Africa. We know that it was only worn by the king, and all his dignitaries would have been entitled to wear another type of elephant mask with cloth made out of leopard skin. This would represent the strength and power that they could exercise in their society. The second characteristic is that it is frontal, which means that the head and the spine are in perfect alignment, in order to reinforce the sense of permanence and formality. This principle only applies to human beings, which are used to represent a divinity or a spirit of the afterworld. The third characteristic is abstraction. Most of African traditional art tends to use that concept. Accuracy and resemblance are not the main goals. The focus is on the artist being able to interpret the form that he sees, and this will depend on his experience and creativity. We still find non-abstract art in African traditional art. This is the case of this statue, but it remains an exception. To be more precise, we talk about degrees of abstraction. The fourth characteristic is distorted body proportion. It is often that we have one or more aspects of the body being exaggerated. We know that the ratio head-body is 1/7. This could be verified with Michelle Obama and Eddie Murphy. If we take this statue from Mali, we should be able to identify three body distortions. The first one is the head, with a ratio head-body of 1/4, which is much higher than the human average. And the second and third one are the neck and the torso, which are extremely elongated. The second example is this Shamba statue from Nigeria, for which we have two parts of the body being exaggerated. The first one is the hand, with a ratio to the arm of 1/3, and the second one is the shoulders, which are being pushed forward in a natural manner. So this is for the fourth characteristic of African traditional art. The first fact is that in 2017, following a visit in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, the French President Emmanuel Macron commissioned a report to look at the state of African traditional art. It revealed that up to 19% of African material legacy is actually located in museums across Europe and America. Recommendations were made to have those artifacts returned back to their original place, but unfortunately, up to today, we have strong resistance from museums to have them returned, and not many actions have been taken. Second fact comes from the media art agency Arcade. Only in 10 years, the value of African traditional art market went from 13.7 million to $100 million. The average African art artifacts can be valued between 30 to 50,000 US dollars, and the most expensive and iconic African traditional art sculptures is this Senufo statue from Ivory Coast, which dates from the 19th century and was sold for a total value of 14 million US dollars. This is the end of our first video. I hope you enjoyed it. Use your new skills to comment on our Senufo statue, and we see you next week to cover our next topic. Take care.